I'll never forget the day it happened. It was a slow Tuesday afternoon, and I was covering a shift at my cousin's diner. He'd left me in charge for a couple of hours while he ran some errands, trusting me to keep the place running smoothly. It wasn't a big diner, just a cozy little spot where locals came to grab a bite and chat. The bell above the door jingled, and I looked up from wiping the counter. In walked a woman. She had this confident stride, wearing a crisp blazer and holding a leather tote bag. Her skin was a deep, rich brown, and her natural curls framed her face perfectly. She looked like she belonged in one of those big corporate offices downtown, not here in this simple diner. But for some reason, I froze. I don't know why. I'd like to think I'm not the kind of person who judges people, but something about her presence made me uneasy. Maybe it was how out of place she looked in our little diner, or maybe it was my own stupid, ingrained biases creeping to the surface. "Good afternoon," she said with a polite smile, stepping up to the counter. "Could I see the menu?" I hesitated. My gut reaction was strange. I can't explain it, but instead of treating her like any other customer, I found myself brushing her off. "We're not serving right now," I said curtly. Her smile faltered, just for a second. "Oh, your sign says you're open," I shrugged, not meeting her eyes. "Yeah, but the kitchen's backed up. It's not a good time." She stood there, looking at me. There was no anger in her gaze, no raised voice, just this calm, measured look that made me feel even more uncomfortable. "I see," she said quietly. "Is this how you usually treat your customers?" Her question caught me off guard. I felt my face heat up, but instead of apologizing, I doubled down. "Look, lady, maybe you should try somewhere else, all right?" She stared at me for a moment longer, then nodded slowly. "All right," she said, her tone calm but firm. "I'll be back." And with that, she turned and walked out. About an hour later, my cousin came back. He was in a good mood, whistling as he walked in. "How's it going?" he asked, pulling off his coat. I shrugged. "Quiet, nothing much happened." Before he could reply, the bell above the door jingled again. I looked up, and my stomach sank. It was her, the woman I'd turned away earlier. But this time, she wasn't alone. She was with a man in a suit, a man I recognized immediately. He was one of the diner's biggest investors, someone my cousin had been working with for months to expand the business. My cousin's face lit up. "Oh, Miss Carter, welcome back." I froze. "Miss Carter?" The woman smiled warmly at my cousin and shook his hand. "Good to see you again, Vikram. I thought I'd drop by and check on things." She turned to me then, her eyes locking onto mine. There was no malice there, but her calm gaze made me want to crawl under a rock. "Miss Carter owns the diner," my cousin explained, oblivious to my growing panic. "She's the one who believed in us and gave us the funding to open this place." I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. I had refused service to the owner of the business. "Is this the new employee you mentioned?" she asked, her tone neutral. My cousin nodded. "Yeah, he's helping me out today. I trust him to handle things when I'm not around." Her eyes didn't leave mine. "Interesting," she said softly. I swallowed hard. "Miss Carter, I didn't know." She held up a hand, silencing me. "You didn't know who I was," she said, her voice calm but firm. "But that shouldn't have mattered. No customer should ever feel unwelcome, no matter who they are." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. She wasn't yelling, but the weight of her disappointment was heavier than any shouting could have been. "I'm sorry," I mumbled, unable to meet her gaze. She nodded. "I hope you've learned something from this," she said. Then, turning to my cousin, she added, "Let's sit and talk about the expansion plans." I spent the rest of the day cleaning tables in silence, replaying the incident over and over in my mind. That day changed me. It made me confront parts of myself I didn't like, parts I hadn't even realized were there. And every time I saw Miss Carter after that, I made sure to treat her and every customer with the respect they deserved. She didn't fire me, and for that, I'll always be grateful, but she didn't have to say much to teach me one of the most important lessons of my life. Kindness and respect shouldn't depend on who someone is. It should simply be who we are.